Eligibility and Inclusiveness for May 26, 2021. I would like to recognize that we are virtually coming from the traditional territories of the Sunamo First Nations, and we thank them. I would like to call the meeting to order. The first item is there any introduction of late items? Sky.
Staff don't have any late items. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll have a mover for the adoption of the agenda. So moved by Cheryl, seconded by
I'll do it.
Jocelyn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion approved. On to presentation. We do have today, we have a guest, Jacqueline Novak, and with TOA Consulting, Readaptive Sports, and I believe she's going to go through a power presentation with us. And thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming me today. As mentioned, my name is Jacqueline Novak. I am the director of TOA Consulting. I'm coming to you from South Vancouver Island right now on the traditional and unceded territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, and very much appreciate the opportunity to be here today. A couple of reasons why I'm here. I'm excited to get to speak to this group and get to know each of you a bit better. Have been working with the City of Nanaimo and different community groups and stakeholders in the area, specifically in the area of sport and tourism. And we've been, TOA Consulting is specialized in sport tourism and not-for-profit, and we've been working very heavily in initiatives focused on equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility in the sport and tourism space as well. Our goal has been on a few of the initiatives that we've been undertaking in the Nanaimo area is on removing barriers to sport and tourism through research, location analysis, some of the public policy and investment recommendations. My hope today in speaking to all of you is to have some basic introductions, but also to get some background and context and share some background and context on the activities that are going on in the area of accessible recreation and adaptive sport and how they apply to Nanaimo, and then introducing the Nanaimo Inclusive Trails Project and really looking for some feedback and considerations from this group. And then wanted to also talk about the Access BC training through Spinal Cord Injury BC, and may lean on Jocelyn a bit to chime in with her experience here. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit of background and context, and I've positioned today's talk a bit around positioning the City of Nanaimo as a leader in adaptive sport. And it was really great timing to speak to this group. As many of you know, we are soon to hear the reading of proposed new legislation with the Legislative Assembly on accessibility. And the goal of the legislation that's coming forward is to create the path for a more accessible and inclusive province. If it's passed, it will allow the province of BC to establish accessibility standards. And part of what makes this really exciting timing is that this puts Nanaimo in a really great position to be forward-looking and to be progressive and to be one of the leading communities in the accessibility and adaptive sport space. So we've been working since 2017 with the City of Nanaimo, Nanaimo Hospitality Association, Tourism Nanaimo, and Tourism Vancouver Island, including Richard Harding, on looking at sport tourism overall and what is the potential. How do we attract, be it visitors for the day or overnight visitors to the region, specifically through sport and recreation. We started looking at it through a lens for the city's existing infrastructure, both public and private, and recreation venues, and looking at potential future investment plans. Really wanted to assess what the potential in Nanaimo was, taking into consideration the volunteers and community members that participate and make all the events happen. And then looking at the existing user groups and really being conscious about not displacing user groups when we're looking at events and bringing in events for competition for hosting. Next slide, please. When we looked through doing the analysis, one of the things that became very clear, and the city staff have reinforced this as well, is looking at Nanaimo's strengths, really has strength in team sport and school sport. Next slide, please. But what we started to find were really great opportunities for the community, especially given the climate, the location, the scenic landscape around cycling, around paddle sport, some very obvious outdoor recreational sports, and then looking at adaptive sport as well because of the location and climate. Indigenous sport as a good fit, and then looking at sport business meetings and some of the smaller team sports as well to make use of some of the venues that did have more space for events. And I think what's really exciting here is to see that adaptive sport was highlighted as something that the community was interested in speaking to local sport organizations and also provincial and national sport organizations, that they would really encourage and appreciate a community like Nanaimo, leading by example and welcoming the adaptive sport community. Next slide, please. So part of the question with this group is around the future focus as well, and wanted to take a look, and we were challenged as a team to look at the opportunities that we have as a community. And it was both a community and as engaged citizens, because there is a really great group of people that are working very hard to bring really exciting events and activities to the region. And to better engage and support adaptive sport and accessible recreation. And so what the team had come up with was, there's definitely work, and I imagine this group can appreciate that and speak to this in volumes, is that there's a lot of work to do around awareness and education. There's a lot of work to do around engagement with user groups and trying to create a more universal and accessible recreation space, both indoor and outdoor. Working to try to identify and assess funding opportunities. And again, the legislative reading is a great example that if it comes into play, there's going to be a question about prioritization of provincial funding. And we see a lot of really great examples of investment in the accessibility and adaptive sports space. Then we also wanted to take a look as well at Nanaimo and what are the quick wins and how can we work for impact? And really that was the goal. No one likes to take on a project without seeing, some reasonable results in a fairly short window. And then we were also challenged by a few stakeholders, including some of the city staff, to find opportunities for pilot projects. Next slide, please. As we moved into looking at some of these opportunities, and again, centered on how can we help and encourage Nanaimo to be and to continue to be a leader in accessibility and adaptive sport, was really around awareness and education. And Jocelyn, please feel free to jump in if you would like, but Spinal Cord BC has developed a really great certification program that we would like to offer to this group if there is interest. And it is a universal design workshop, and it's offering some foundational training on universal design and accessibility to key stakeholders within the community. So there will be some other groups within Nanaimo that may be interested in taking this training, but we thought, what a great opportunity when we learned about it to bring this forward to this group as well. And the goal is to help advance our thinking as a community relative to access and inclusion. The committee, I understand all of you are very passionate and engaged community members. And so I guess the first question to put out to this group is that the training is available and that we would like to offer it to the group. And if interested, then it will just be the follow-up as to the timing of when. Next slide, please, and I'll share a bit about the training. So the purpose is to provide the staff from local and regional government, tourism stakeholders, and outdoor recreation professionals and accessibility partners within Nanaimo the skills and knowledge to incorporate universal design principles into programming, facility design, construction, and maintenance programs for parks, recreation, business, and civic facilities. Some of the topics that are covered are universal design, the difference between building codes versus design, looking at barriers to access for all and universal access, marketing, and again, that education and awareness piece, some of the economic benefits, the planning, repair and renovations, and then practical tips for implementing. So I don't know if it's appropriate to open it up and get some feedback from the group now, or if you'd like me to continue and then we can open it up at the end.
Thank you. At this time, I don't have the full screen with the PowerPoint presentation. If anybody has any immediate questions right now, I would need you to speak up, please.
This is Jocelyn speaking. It's just one comment. Hi, Jacqueline. One comment to mention if people are interested to situate the universal design training. It's something that Spinal Cord Injury BC has been doing for 6-7 years now, mostly with tourism and hospitality types of industries around the province, with an emphasis on outdoor spaces, but not exclusive to it. And the whole goal is building capacity in communities to be able to assess and create more universally designed and inclusive spaces, because we know that there are alternatives where you can get like a building audited or a space certified as accessible, but it can be often too costly for like widespread use. So this was more of a capacity building approach that would be open to people of a variety of levels and experiences. So just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that's great context, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Okay. And what we'll do is, while the presentation is going, if people just want to jot down their questions or anything, and we could ask questions at the end of the presentation. Thank
Certainly.
you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next slide, please. We'll go to next slide. So coming back to the opportunities, and again, want to put this out to this group to provide additional feedback around where we see opportunities for Nanaimo to become and continue to be a leader in adaptive sport in different respects, is really looking at the opportunities for pilot projects as well. Next slide, please. So the opportunities for pilot projects, one of the really obvious ones that came about really fortunately actually this past fall was looking at an opportunity for cycling and adaptive sport. Kootenay Adaptive Sport has been creating awareness and education programs around universal physical activity and adaptive mountain biking, accessible trail usage, etc. And happened to be in the Nanaimo region, and really were excited about what Nanaimo had to offer in terms of scenery, climate, and the existing trail network. Next slide, please. And when looking at this from both a use within the community and the opportunity to bring new user groups and a new visitor base to the region. And when we were challenged to come up with a pilot project, we just thought, this is great. Kootenay Adaptive Sport Association was really keen to work with us and sort of assess and support Nanaimo in the assessment of what does Nanaimo have in terms of the trail network, and can we assess the region's trail network and infrastructure through the lens of accessibility and inclusion, with the goal of creating a more universal outdoor recreation spaces and opportunities to enhance trail network for all users. The objectives of the project were to set a baseline and really to introduce a definition for inclusive trail standards. And what do inclusive trail standards mean for the region? Catalog and inventory existing trails. There's tons of work that's already been done in that space, and it's just bringing it all together with this new lens of accessibility and inclusion. And then assessing the existing trails against the inclusive trail and universal design standards. And those standards are what would be presented and taught in the Access BC training through Spinal Cord Injury BC, is what are those standards and what are those factors that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at the barriers that may exist on some trails, but not just barriers, but how do we encourage inclusivity and create a level of challenge as well, depending on everybody's intended use for trails. Looking for any of the gaps and opportunities for improvement, and then looking at recommendations that could be used as a reference for municipal, regional, and provincial government bodies, funding agencies, etc., to really help continue to boost the trail network in the region. And the other components of this project that's been really exciting, we just officially kicked off at the end of April, is that the ministry, the BC government has granted the project team an amount of funds to create jobs for 4 individuals, persons with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And what's been fantastic, we have such an amazing team that has been put together, folks from Nanaimo region and a couple others across Vancouver Island, is to see the different perspectives and just all of the great knowledge that everybody's bringing to the table to really round out the lens on assessing the trails. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the fun part where I open it up to the group. Is firstly, any comments and questions about the project, and then really want to get into some questions for you about potential user groups and where some of our immediate quick wins could be priorities in your perspective as well. So I might run through these questions, but wanted to open it up to the group first.
Hi, I just have a question. This looks fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time to bring this to us. I'm wondering about Indigenous, sort of any kind of, have you gone to Indigenous communities to talk about this? Have you had their input into this plan? I feel like taking this to Indigenous communities would be so important and just a wonderful offering, and wondering if you've engaged them so far. Yeah, it's a great question, Deborah. So the project team literally has kicked off just with the early stages of planning in the last 2 weeks. And so working with the Snuneymuxw First Nations and any of the communities is incredibly important and central to the plan and to any stakeholder engagement and community consultation. I think for now, especially given, I'd say COVID protocol as well, we actually aren't able to go out in person to any of the trails as part of the official team for these first couple of weeks before we start getting into reopening to a degree. So to answer your question, it is in the works. There has been some initial sort of conversations unofficially right now as we're planning what are the stages to engage in consultation, because again, we're in only the first couple of weeks and we're planning that is absolutely a priority.
Thank you. I have Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. You know, I understand the interest in going with the inclusive trails, but for me, I think we should be looking at the paddling center right now. I mean, that's something that we're moving ahead from a council perspective. I brought the project to the POG, which is the Protocol and Working Group with the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Chief and the rest of that council were extremely supportive of it and really want to see it go. And I think that's an area that we could really do a lot of work in. So for me, that would be a bigger priority right now, because I think we can capitalize on more grants and stuff versus the inclusive trails, because we'll have to get, like most of the trails that probably you're referring to are probably going to fall under the Regional District of Nanaimo. So the RDN, which is a totally different board. So for me, I would like to do some more discussion around the paddling center. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Councillor Armstrong.
Adrian.
Thank you so much. It's funny when Deborah, when you said that, my mind went right away to Newcastle Island, and I thought, wait a minute, that's a provincial marine park. It's a different trail, but I thought about that, and then that links in with the paddling center as well. I was actually thinking about how great it would be to pilot, with a smaller trail in Nanaimo, and then expand or champion with the regional district through the parks and trails function. And then you can even expand into transit, going, okay, well, how do you get to the trails? How do you get onto the trails and off of the trails and back home and all of those things? Oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. And the other thing I thought about was then when you're doing that, then looking at things like City of Nanaimo has wonderful kids camps, and I've got to say I've used them for years, and they're wonderful. And there are so many. There's one called Camp Action that's sports focused. There's a new one, I think it's called Camp Compass, and they're out in the parks and using the trails every day. And there's the cycling safety kids camps as well. And I know that much work has been done toward inclusivity within those camps, and I wonder if that is something that could be built on with the ones that are more focused on trails, or the one, for example, that the ones that happen at Bevan that are close to the Partissa Park and things like that, where you can really capitalize on the interconnection between things, and then you're seeing the user not just in one place, but getting to and from and within a whole network of accessible spaces.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Jocelyn.
Can I ask a bit of, just offer some feedback?
Yes.
Or get insight. Full disclosure, I'm part of I'm somehow a part of the organizing group. And the effort kind of grew out of a initial inspiration about Westwood Lake and the trail being not accessible all the way around. And we knew that there were lots of different stakeholders involved in that. It was kind of outside of what we saw as something we could really, act on. But taking that interest, because we spoke with a bunch of the disability and adapted sport groups initially about that, and then it kind of grew into this cool opportunity with the Hospitality Association. And I think what we saw was an opportunity to make the trails that exist already in the regional district and the city and the surrounding areas more inclusive by connecting them and understanding what we've got better. And as a person, I'm a wheelchair user and I ride an adaptive bike, but I also go on those trails with family and friends and with a variety of different abilities. And what I see is half of the reason that I find I'm passively excluded from some of those trails is a lack of accessible trailheads and places to park and safe places to get out and access those trails out of my car. And then, I have a car, as someone just mentioned. If you don't, that's even harder. And just trying to see how it can be a network that is more inclusive for more people. And that includes, strollers and wheelchairs and walkers and all kinds of people. So it's kind of we're trying to find out how Nanaimo's amazing region for trails could be more than just the able-bodied mountain bike community. Could work for more people and be more inclusive of more people. And yeah, so that's kind of the background.
Okay, so on that note, and not seeing anybody else's hands up, I'm just wondering if Mr. Harding and wants to comment further on that with our trails. We've got here, you've got a project goal here. Is this something that you were looking for the city to use as a project goal, or we might even have a catalog and inventory, I'm sure we do, of our existing trails, for example. So maybe Jacqueline first, if you can comment more on the expectation around that project goal.
Yeah, certainly. So I hear a few different statements of the comments of some of the trails are in Nanaimo. A good number will be in the regional district of Nanaimo, and then expanding on what Jocelyn's stating about the importance of understanding the network and the connections, be it through transit, be it through the trails. And so I think that this is an instance where, and Richard, I'll let you speak to this, where there has been interest from the team to start looking at those opportunities to create connection and to create a safer, more universal, more accessible place for the population in Nanaimo. But there are benefits well beyond that as well. And so I think, there, again, being in early stages, there is a focus on working in collaboration with the city, with the regional district, with the major user groups like the Nanaimo Mountain Bike Club, for example, and making sure that everybody is at the table, Saanimic First Nations, really ensuring that all the voices are at the table that need to be to understand. And that's part of our first step here, is understanding the perspectives from this group.
And just before I go to Mr. Harding for a response, so for instance, a presentation to the Parks and Trails Committee at the RDN, and I could look into having that arranged to it, I think might be a good suggestion as well. So, Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Chair. So a number of comments on here. First of all, thanks for Jacqueline for coming. And so just so the committee knows, so this is an ongoing work that we're doing with Jacqueline. Jacqueline's also doing our sports tourism strategy, which we'll bring to the committee at another time once we've introduced it to council, and which has some other specific, and it kind of works on what Jacqueline's working on, some targeted aspects of what we see as our competitive advantage in a number of areas. And we think accessibility is one of those areas that we can definitely make some headway on. And I think what the committee would see through the overall theme since we first started meeting was this continuation of us working towards identifying all these key locations. And like Jocelyn's comments are bang on, and that's why we're so appreciative of the group, because we can have the best trails, but if you can't get out of your car, or you can't use the washroom, or you can't do other location things, that we're really not doing very well. And we know one of our weaknesses are our trailheads. Last week, council approved, and Monday night they'll hopefully at the committee level approved it last week, and then at council hopefully this Monday. Two things. One is a planning process that we want to do for Westwood Lake, and a lot of what the aspects of Westwood Lake isn't the overall trails, but it's more that trailhead aspect of the beaches. How can the beach be more accessible, both for beach users and direct access into the water, but also that building an accessible washroom. We'll bring that to one of the recommendations in there, is that we include this committee in that review process. So those are those kinds of building on those components. And I think, Jocelyn, I keep thinking of that picture of you sent a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was you in front of Chase River Estuary Park with the sign. I know, which is embarrassing on that part. And then we have this, we say it's disabled, it's accessible, but it definitely wasn't. So long-winded response, Chair, but I'll just give me one more minute here.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that we keep moving on here. And then the symbol behind me, the reimagine process, is what is also, if we can get all this information and make that a real strategy into what we want to bring that city plan in. And that's why we're, you see Jamie Rose and Bill Sims as much on this committee as anything with active transportation, is that we want to try and make the city plan work for all aspects. So if you can be on engineering roads and sidewalks, but then transition quickly into parks and trails and trailheads. So again, I say that because this is all part of that overall puzzle. And then this with Jacqueline's presentation and the presentation last month is you can see there's a lot of groups and organizations out there ready to make some of these things happen. So hope that answers a little bit of that. A little winded.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Harding, and thank you very much. Eileen would like to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. So just to play devil's advocate, as a senior and as a person with a hearing disability, there's parks and trails in Nanaimo that I no longer go to because I don't feel it's safe for me to do a casual walk, to do a little bit of bird watching, to do a bit of sketching, whatever, because I always have to pay attention to joggers, people on bicycles, people moving faster than me. And so I kind of want to put that into the picture too, that maybe there's other people that don't want to be like pounding up the mountains, that want a place to go that's maybe a little quieter, it's a little more serene, a little bit more natural. And just to put that 2 cents, but I'm saying that if we're going to talk accessibility, then we need to talk it for everybody. And not everybody is into sports and recreation. And I know that's kind of off the subject, but we are talking about parks and trails, so I thought I'd bring it up.
No,
Sure.
That's a good point, Eileen. And
Hey.
Richard wants to say something, and then Jacqueline.
No, that's absolutely perfect, Eileen, because that's another thing we're finding as we do the reimagining process, which is also the Parks, Recreation, Culture Master Plan, is trying to find that. So, for example, Buttertubs Marsh, we want to make sure that is a place that isn't going to be cycling, it's not going to be running, though we have it there. So some of those sanctuary areas, some of the areas through Lindley Valley, and some of those other parks and trails. It's the same thing with dogs. That's why we don't make every place a dog off leash. Some of the dog owners would like everything to be a dog off leash, but there's a lot of people who don't want dogs running all over them. And so it is that balance of finding those locations and also those serenity areas where people can just enjoy the natural aspect and not do it. So it's harder with not harder, but it's one of those things we need to always include in the planning.
Thank you. And Jacqueline, just before I go to you, I've got a first-time speaker with Rachel. Rachel,
Hi.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. Are you currently eliciting suggestions of places to work on, or do you have a list of them already? Jacqueline?
Good question, Rachel. I think it's both. We have had some recommendations come through, even from Jocelyn and the folks that have been involved with the very preliminary discussions about the project, but we are absolutely soliciting requests. Where do you think the priorities are? Where do we feel the opportunities and some of the best opportunities may lie as well? So please, any suggestions that you have are welcomed.
Yeah, I was just at the Colliery Dam, and I'm not sure if it's within City or Nanaimo or not. I'm rather new to Nanaimo.
Yes.
Right. There's a large cement path that's really great that runs right through there. Some of the benches were kind of like set off the path and were like a steep bit down off the cement. So if there's any upgrading going to be happening at Colliery Dam, making the cement or asphalt continue to the benches and then with kind of a wide area around them so that someone can sit there and have their walkers, on the pavement beside them, or someone can sit on the bench and have their friend in a wheelchair beside them, and they're not inaccessible when the benches are full. Because if the benches are full, and you can't get to the benches that are, a foot down off the path in the dirt, just some upgrading would be really handy. And I know there's a map at the Colliery, but I totally missed it. So maybe a bigger sign at the parking lot, these are the accessible trails, or something like that, where it's just easier to find when you get there.
Really good points. Thank you, Rachel.
Very good.
And Jacqueline, I'll leave it back to you, and then we will be wrapping this up because we do have other items on the agenda, and I want to get everything done this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So just in terms of the assessment, and again, this group helping define some of the priorities for assessment is important. And so, Eileen, thank you for sharing your observations. That absolutely is part and parcel of creating universal design and being able to communicate to different users about which are the trails and outdoor recreation spaces that may be the most suitable for them. To Richard's point, not everybody wants dogs, not everybody wants bikes. So really making sure that there's spaces for everyone. And then to Rachel, thanks for that feedback. Absolutely, we'll take that into consideration. And that's part of those quick wins. And I know, Richard, we did the walk around Colliery Dam and have a list with Access BC that we went through of some potential upgrades, and are really excited about the potential of this project to bring that to light and what that means even in terms of signage. And so, and Deborah, back to your original question about engagement with the First Nations community, what's great about doing accessibility assessments is that we also get to start talking about communication and signage and interpretive signage as well, and how that all feeds together. So I just wanted to say thank you. That's my last statement there.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Armstrong.
Chair, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, we were put that universal design workshop. I'm very interested in looking at that. Do we want to do a motion now while Jacqueline's still here, or would you like to wait till new business?
Let's wait till new business. Do we have the information of how to contact and everything, though? I would imagine Sky.
Yes, we do have our contact.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
So we can put that under new business. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. You can remain a guest, or
thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. We'll move on to 5 reports. 5A, the LEAP Program Review, Phase 3, to be introduced by Richard Harding. Over to you, Richard.
I will do this very quickly because Lynn Work is actually working away on this. Again, this is one of those projects we've been wanting to get through for a while. As mentioned last month, we just ran out of time. And so we're reintroducing it here for discussion. And I'll turn over to Lynn.
Thank you, Richard. So here we are at phase 3 of the LEAP program review. And just as a reminder, the LEAP program is our financial access program in the Recreation and Culture Department. And we were tasked to do a review, which we separated into 4 stages. The first 2 stages involved reviewing our current program, conducting a survey of the current LEAP membership, researching some other municipalities and their programs, taking a look at the initial results from the Reimagine process in stage 1, and doing a little bit of digging into our current poverty info for the city of Nanaimo. We presented all of that information back to you in February, I think it was. And so our small working group, which was 4 different staff members, put together some recommendations based on all of that information that we collected. And so we have 14 recommendations, 12 of which we initially, when we had this report ready for a month ago, we thought we'd be able to implement by September. We probably still can implement most of them by September. A couple of them might take a bit longer, given the delay here. But I think I'll just run through the recommendations quite quickly, just to get everybody up to date with what they are. And then I'll just open it up for any questions if you have any. So our first recommendation is around reducing the stigma around applying for the program, and we talk about considering changing the name of the program so it doesn't reference a lack of financial resources. And we actually did a large amount of research around other program names, and we actually couldn't come up with many that didn't reference a lack of financial resources. We put one example here, LIFE, Leisure Inclusion for Everyone, but we thought this is something the committee might like to consider. Although the program has been called LEAP for a long number of years, and the community might be really familiar with that, so I'm not sure whether a name change is a good idea or not, but it's just one suggestion here for your consideration. Recommendation 2 talks about reducing the supporting documentation that's required to apply for the program. And the notice of assessment is a key document, but in recommendation number 3, what we're saying is that we'll give staff the autonomy to make a different decision if somebody is slightly above the low income threshold that the notice of assessment would relate to, but has proof of undue hardship. So just giving our staff some flexibility to do that. The 4th recommendation is creating an online self-assessment eligibility tool, just so people can easily see whether they can apply for the program or not. And then the 5th recommendation is to put the application form online so that people don't have to come into our facilities to our front desks to actually submit their application. The 6th recommendation is to work with Literacy Central Vancouver Island to proofread the revised application and all of the program materials and make sure that they're easily understandable. Recommendation 7 are also around reducing the stigma around applying for the program, and that is offering private appointments to applicants who might wish to discuss the program in more detail or learn a little bit more about what options are available to them, and they could do that by coming in and having a meeting with one of our recreation coordinators. We also are recommending in number 8 that for people whose situation is unlikely to change, that we extend the eligibility from 1 year to 2 years. So an example of that might be somebody who's on disability assistance and their situation is not going to change. Recommendation 9 is to provide the opportunity to renew the drop-in pass. If you've used the 50 drop-ins that you're eligible for, you can come back in and apply for more passes. And we thought that this was a good way of encouraging people to use up those drop-ins and get them coming in and being active. Recommendation 10 is to create a marketing and communications plan, which also would include building relationships and networking with other community partners and key organizations, just so that we make the community more aware that this is an option available to them. Recommendation 11 is to create enhanced program information materials. And number 12 is to figure out some target measures where we could go back and reevaluate the program in a year from now and see if any of these changes are making a difference to the number of people accessing the program. And then we have some recommendations that require a little bit of further exploration. So number 13 is just to determine what the impact would be of including post-secondary students, or if there might be a potential partnership opportunity with Vancouver Island University. And recommendation number 14 is doing some research around figuring out what alternate options of proof might be able to be used if someone has trouble accessing a notice of assessment. So some of these examples are people who are on a guaranteed income supplement or proof of disability assistance, that kind of thing. And also in doing our research and our networking with other organizations, just figuring out if it's possible that we might be able to get a letter from an adjudicator or a referral agency to support somebody's application. So those are the 14 recommendations that we're making that we think will make this program more accessible to the community. And what we're advising the recommendation be is that the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness approve the recommendations outlined in Phase 3 of the LEAP program review and recommend staff forward them to Council for consideration.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I do have a speakers list starting, and it's with Debbie and then Cheryl.
Sorry. Thanks, Zenny. It's Deborah, actually.
Deborah, I'm sorry, Deborah.
Okay. It's okay. So I just want to say I've working in nonprofit organizations and having supported families through this process, I want to applaud the work that has been done here. This is so much in the right direction. And I just want to thank you so much I know that probably a lot of discussion and hard work went into this. So I'm just really excited about this and want to thank you. My thoughts rest around the area of, so where there's some wiggle room, where you talk, I think between 7 and 8. Yeah, or sorry, what was the recommendation? Allowing staff to sort of make a decision.
3 and 4. 3 and 4,
Yeah.
I think it was.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah,
Number
Or
3.
2 and 3 or something.
okay.
One of those.
Number 3.
Yeah, so I really like that idea of flexibility. I think you might want to tighten it up a little bit because I think that's where a lot of confusion can get into it. But I do really like that idea. And I just want to throw support behind having organizations in the city write a letter of support, and that holds weight. And that could also be a real significant step for somebody getting this. Again, the nonprofits in this city really know the people they're working with more so often than the larger systems. And so developing that relationship and that trust with nonprofits, that we can actually do that and probably be quite helpful in the process. So again, thank you so much for this. Really exciting.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Totally agree with the comments Deborah made. I think they're bang on. I think that's a really important piece. I myself, I'm not that big on changing the name. I don't like it, to be honest, the leisure inclusion for everyone. I don't like that title. I think that we get caught up on that because people are still going to know whether it's called Life or Leap if a person has that pass at their low income. So I don't see a big issue with the name change. I just think it's going to cost us more to make the change because then you have to change all your documents, et cetera, et cetera. So I just have a concern around that. The rest I think is really good. I think it would be great to find some alternate proof and documentation for people because it is hard sometimes to get those documentations. So I really like that we're using the nonprofits or even care providers to give us that information. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jocelyn and then Rachel. Is it Rachel or Rochelle? Rachel. Okay. So Jocelyn first.
Okay. I'm thrilled at all these recommendations. I know a lot of our members tend to fall outside the income category because they might have a pension, but they have so many more costs related to their disabilities. It would be a barrier to them participating. And in Kelowna, for example, they have used nonprofit organization referrals for folks who don't quite fit exactly in the requirements. And I've had to write letters like that. And just on that note, if you can put a little text on the website about it in terms of what the nonprofit organization should be, like how we should refer, then that would be easier for us. And certainly we would be, all of our nonprofit groups would be great partners in marketing it, in circulating the information and just reminding people it exists and that more people than probably believe they qualify could benefit from it.
Thank you. And Rachel.
Yeah, I'm also in support of keeping the name the same. Like you said, it's a well-known program, the people who've been using it know about it and know the name. And it's something that's easy to continue printing, like Cheryl said, on new pamphlets. You don't have to go through and change everything. And as a low-income student, I would love to see students be able to access the program. Like VIU does have a gym, but not everyone wants to go use it or can use the gym. So having all the recreation facilities be available and with drop-in passes, etc. Also, there's a lot of mature students at VIU. So I think the community effect would be really helpful for students. And on the thing of having someone writing a referral, I think having care providers being able to write a referral as well, like people, not just doctors, but say therapists or counselors, people who, care providers who know the patient much better than probably their family doctor, if they have one, would make the program more accessible.
Thank you. And Councillor Armstrong, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, for number 5, we still have to make sure that they can come to the front desk because not everybody has access to a computer. That was a big thing I heard doing some of my work. So I think it's important that we to eliminate the requirement. You can do both, one or either. Thanks.
Thank you. Now I see hands up for Deborah and Jocelyn. Deborah?
Yeah, sorry, one other, I forgot to mention this. So in the area where you're leaving some wiggle room for staff to make decisions, is there the ability for people to challenge decisions that might not get put forward? And I'm wondering if that might be something that you might need to incorporate, especially if you're letting people kind of make decisions outside of the boundaries of the program. Just
through the chair, thank you. That's a good question. At this point, we hadn't thought about a mechanism for somebody who feels as a decision should be reassessed. So that maybe is something that we need to do. You did talk about tightening up this number 3. I think, in my experience, because I've worked as a person who facilitates this program for many years, every individual situation is so different. It could be really difficult to put any kind of firm parameters on what we might consider an undue hardship. So I think that's just something that we might have to give a little bit more thought to is if we tighten it up, what does that look like? And if somebody wants to appeal our decision, will we provide a mechanism for that? So that might end up being one that we put on the list under the recommendations requiring further exploration. Sorry, my light just went out. I have to move to put it back on.
No worries. I think the spirit of what you're trying to get at is exactly bang on, but I do think it could introduce more complications, and you might want to have a mechanism for people to be able to challenge that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And seeing no further speakers, I'm just going to add a few cents of my own. I agree with many of the other speakers. I don't think we need a name change right now. I think those that are familiar with the program, that it's right there. I did just see your hand come up, Adrian. After me. Okay. Having been a parent on low income before and having working and have friends with disability and low income, I'm wondering if there's any ability to consider those on disability usually stay on disability and they have a card. So maybe even go one step further, not 2 years. You've got that disability card. You can access the recreation as long as you are a resident of Nanaimo, perhaps. I'm just throwing that out there. Whatever we can do to make this the easiest. And I think unless we get a lot of abuse, and my instinct is people don't usually look to, there's the odd percentage that will go to look to see what they can get out of the system. But the majority of people are not going to go through the trouble of trying to get a complimentary or a reduced pass if they have the money. These are for people that definitely do it. Whatever we can do to make the process the easiest we can for them, and to make the ability to be able to have, I really like the idea of nonprofit referrals where people know the people they're working with, because you might have that pension that puts you $200 over the limit, but like you say, you have $300 of medical costs, you can't afford it. And so I would like to see us encourage us to be really progressive, really open, really almost to the point where, yes, it could be abused, but let's see if it is. And if it isn't, we continue. And if it is abused, then we pull back. But I would like to, first of all, see as many people as we can in our city being able to have access to this as easily as they can and without having to jump through a lot of hoops. So Nonprofit referral sounds great to me. Anyways, okay, I had Adrian, and then I've got Richard.
I just really wanted to say thank you. And Lynn, I just going through the recommendations, I know that there was lots of feedback that you received on this, including members of the committee. I know I provided some feedback, and I just think that seeing all of those recommendations together feels so good. And I know that wordsmithing certainly happened with anything that I submitted. So thank you for that too. And I did just want to say, in terms of the cost, I agree. I think I like the LEAP name. And I guess maybe that's something that would come up in evaluation. If you're getting a whole bunch of people coming to the city saying, you know, I don't want to apply because of the name, or my kids feel stigmatized, or I feel stigmatized. I did want to add too that there is a gain with that cost that comes with changing everything, and that gain of inclusivity. And, you know, often we're faced with, well, we can't do that, it's too much money, and often it is. But, you know, starting from this point and moving forward, there is option 2. So I think if I feel confident that had people felt a different way, that it could be done. As it is, LEAP is a very active name, and I just you know, really associate it with recreation and parks, and I don't actually associate it in that way. I would like to move option 2 with Deborah's suggested edits. I know there's other comments, but I would be happy to move option 2, incorporating Deborah's suggestions.
Do I have a seconder for option 2? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. We do have a motion on the floor. I do see your hand, Richard, so I will have you speak. And did you want to speak to that a bit, Adrian? There was a reason why option 2 versus option 1?
Well, my understanding was that we would, to move option 1, we would need to incorporate as is. And I know that Deborah had asked that we could tinker with some of the language, and I thought that was really important. I just wanted to, I heard her and wanted to make sure that was included in our decision making.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have Richard on the speakers list.
Hi. This is not for the motion on the floor, though. So.
Did you want to speak to the motion on the floor? For
no.
or against?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you after?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Lynn?
Thank you. Through the chair, just to provide some clarity here then, I think that what I've heard is if we went with option 2, the revision would be to eliminate recommendation 1, which is recommending a name change, and then to look at recommendations 3 and 8 and put them under the requiring further exploration piece.
And do we have something in here about referrals from nonprofits?
Yes. That is recommendation number 14 speaks to that.
Right.
Our staff group feels that we just need to do a little bit more research, and also with our marketing and communications plan recommendation number 10, we'll start outreaching to different organizations and slowly probably adding one organization at a time who can do referrals. We just didn't have the time to connect with all of the right organizations and get all of that in place, but I think we can certainly work on it and let it evolve over time.
So with the permission of the committee, I'm just going to ask, because I do note that in option number 2, that this could be additional staff time and additional costs. We're not making a lot of revision here. Do you anticipate any of that?
Through the chair, no. I think the changes you're asking for are quite minor, and I don't anticipate them having any great deal of cost at all.
Okay, so with the will of the committee, if this motion passes, will we have the opportunity to review it quickly before it goes to council?
Through the chair, I think I would have to ask somebody in Ledge Services to speak to that. Typically, when you make a motion at this committee, we then take a report forward to council. So I'm not sure how it works.
Or more so, I'm going to ask the committee now, is everybody comfortable with this going forward to council with the Lynn reviewing I'm seeing a nodding of heads. So I'm going to call the question though, then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Richard, over to you.
Awesome. So I believe when I was up at VIU, disability services would often have a standard of a disability kind of review or someone that has a permanent disability would have to get assessed at least once every 5 years. So if someone shows that they have a permanent disability, and they actually can like show this through, say, a doctor or through having the permanent disability supplement from the province, I think possibly instead of 2 years, it should probably go to at least 5 years to make it easier. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. And I see Mr. Richard Harding.
Sorry, Chair. I thought I was going to try and answer one of those questions before, but I think we've answered it. But I would say, though, this is the kind of policy work that we're really appreciative of the committee, and this is the kind of policy stuff we want to keep bringing back to the committee. It's very important, and so the input on this is priceless for us. So,
thank you, Richard. And we'll move on to, I believe it is number 5B on the agenda, the allocation of pedestrian budget to enhance accessibility. And I believe Mr. Jamie Rose is here and he's been waiting patiently. So I will turn this over to him.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the report that we've got presenting here is to allocate or seek a recommendation for allocating the remainder of the pedestrian unallocated funds. This year, Council identified an additional $700,000 to enhance pedestrian mobility within the city. And in the interest of finding or selecting opportunities to move quickly and have a significant impact in the community, both for mobility and in a timely fashion. We brought forward some recommendations to identify some intersection upgrades and some accessibility upgrades at transit stops. And there is a list that we can go through, or I'm happy to answer any questions on the thought process that brought us to this conclusion, or have any other discussions or recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. And I do have Richard, you have your hand up? Richard Harlow.
Hi. Yes, I do. So one thing that had come out in, I believe, Nanaimo News Now, they had mentioned that there are a couple intersections in particular that have higher prone to accidents, both pedestrians and traffic. Have these high accident areas kind of been taken more seriously, looked at for accessibility, for buses and crosswalks and all the above?
Thank you, Richard, and I will turn that over to either Mr. Sims or Mr. Rose. I think Mr. Sims is online, so, or Mr. Rose, whichever.
Okay. I'll speak up. Through the chair, I suspect you're referring to the article that came out maybe a day or two ago. And so that's the annual update that ICBC provides with their collision statistics. And that is information that we are aware of and do use when possible. These intersections that we've identified are actually ones that don't currently have accessible push buttons or audible indicators. And so while the collision analysis is very important, we felt that these are actually ones that justify a more urgent response, whereas the intersections which have elevated collision rates, we feel it's more important to do a deep dive on those and understand what the collision causation is. And so, there's a parallel, but it's not a direct relationship for this report.
Thank you. And Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Great report, Mr. Rose. I really think you guys have really hit the nail on the head here. My question is going towards transit stops. When you're talking about doing some for accessibility, will that include for people with the walkers where they struggle to get on and off the curbs?
Through the chair, yes. So what we've done is gone through, worked with the RDN and gone through and look at their ridership data to find out where the highest on people waiting to get on the buses is where we don't have elevated platforms and it's sort of either a shoulder or something that's not accessible to people with mobility aids. And so we want to come up with a standardized treatment that can be implemented quickly and alleviate that barrier.
Well, thank you. Like I said, very, very happy with your report. Thank you very much.
Not seeing anybody else with their hands up right now. My 2 cents was we just recently received an email regarding the challenges outside of the BC services on Selby Street. And we're being able to park and being able to get somebody out of the handicap, something about the sidewalk not being level enough, or the way that the person was afraid that that by the time they got it situated, they weren't going to be able to get the person, they were going to lose their parking spot. So I don't know if the rest of you read that email, but I found it's an area where a lot of people with mobility challenges would use that government service building. So, Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, just to follow up, that was sent to me initially, and then I forwarded on to the committee.
Right.
The big concern around that one is there is no parking for disability there. And there's a lot of people with disability issues that access the services. So what they were looking for was, could there be an opportunity to put in a handicap parking spot, a disability parking spot, on someplace on the street? I see Mr. Sims has got his finger up there.
Yes, Mr. Sims.
That meant to be my full hand. Sorry if I've looked wrong.
I've had worse.
There is in fact a parking spot near the corner of Prudhoe and Albert. It's fairly close to the accessible ramp at the letdown, if that makes sense, at the crosswalk.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, Cheryl, you still have your hand up, or was somebody?
Yeah, I just want to, just as a follow-up on that, was the issue there the fact too that it's up a hill, which is difficult to push some of the wheelchairs up a hill, or am I mixing it up?
No, it wasn't about the hill.
It's pretty level across there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
I'll go check it.
Was everybody comfortable with the list that was provided on attachment B? Is anybody wanting to care to make a motion?
I had one clarifying question. When the accessibility is being considered, or should I wait?
No, Richard, go ahead.
When considering kind of upgrading these spots, what are the full things being considered here? Is that actually there? It seemed fairly open-ended.
Through the chair.
Mr. Rose or Mr. Sims? Mr. Rose.
So are you looking at the signal side or the intersection side of things, or the bus stop side of things?
The bus stop side of things specifically.
So the bus stop side of things, we are focusing primarily on some of our on the routes that don't currently have sidewalks. So we want to be able to make sure that everybody's up at grade to get into the buses.
Okay.
So it's a fairly utilitarian approach and fairly simplistic view of that. We don't have the capacity to dig too deeply into that, but if you've got suggestions or recommendations, we're always open to considering other features or
one thing that I noticed downtown on some of the construction that's already happened with the bike lane is having those like tactile pads down, like at the actual bus stop itself. I find that like as a blind user, when I'm having to try and hunt for where the bus stop is and look for the sign, it's really difficult if you're low vision and really difficult if you're blind. But having those like tactile surfaces actually is the best thing to be able to signify that.
I'm not sure if this is the right forum, but I'd actually really like to have a discussion with you about that, because when I was in Vancouver, we tried several different approaches. So I don't know if this is quite the...
That's okay. And it's the accessibility and inclusive. I've got Jocelyn, but go ahead, Mr. Rose.
Okay, so in my previous experience, we did try a tactile panel across the sidewalk to identify bus stops. One of the difficulties was when it came time to adjust the locations of bus stops, it became a much more elaborate process, which doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't consider it, but there may be alternative ways that it can achieve the same outcome. One other option that was explored was to put a different almost like a collar on the bus stop itself that could be picked up when caning. I don't know if that's it's really sort of actually this is a great forum to sort of extract that information and see what makes the most, what provides the greatest service right now. So if the tactile ones do facilitate that, I do have a little bit of wariness of creating confusion between the conflict that they're identifying for entering a roadway or something like that versus identifying a stop. So there maybe, like I say, maybe there's sort of a variation on it that we could discuss.
Okay. Richard, did you have any feedback on that, or? Oh, Richard Harlow. Oh, I'm going to go to Jocelyn right now.
Okay. Feel free to break in, Richard, if you figure it out. Just on that note of tactile markings, when I was on the City of Vancouver's Disability Advisory Committee, we had talked a little bit about using grooves instead of rumble strips, because some folks with certain types of mobility devices can get hung up on rumble strips or be kind of thrown off in order to get into a curb. For example, you wouldn't want to sort of slip off or run into trouble. And I have heard, although not like decided about before, that using the grooves as one form of tactile marking. And then the grooves can be filled in with like an asphalt after if it needs to be moved. Just a guess, not a city planner. But
Sorry, are you referring to like an intersection treatment or at the bus stops?
At the bus stops.
Okay.
But you're right, like it needs to be clear that it's a bus stop and not an intersection. But my other comment that I'd raised my hand about was just a general one that on the New Westminster Advisory Committee I was on, we started like one of our very first plans was to like, where do we put the money to make transit more accessible and make the city more accessible? And we did exactly this. We worked with the bus company to contribute funds toward enabling more stops to be accessible, and it had a huge impact on the city's general accessibility. So I am 100% in favor of your list, and I think it's a great way to like kickstart it.
Fantastic.
Okay, Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I think this is a great discussion, and I was thinking that perhaps, I remember one of the committee's recommendations that sparked Mr. Rose's report here was trying to make transit stops more uniform across the city, and that's kind of, I think, was part of the genesis. But we can take that a little bit further too. Some of these suggestions that you've made, both from Richard and Jocelyn, I think are excellent. And if any other members of the committee want to funnel some suggestions through, I think that would be really helpful to Mr. Rose's group. And we could come back again, compile that and do some further research, come back to the committee and perhaps develop a standard for exactly transit stops. That helps.
Thank you. Richard, did you wish to add something now?
Yeah, I apologize for the interruption there. Good old working at home. So in regards to the bus stops, the thing that blind users often encounter, and something that I've personally encountered several times, is either offshooting the bus stop or like undershooting where the actual bus stop is. So then the bus driver will drive past. Most of the time they see the white cane and they just like will know, but not everyone always notices it 100% of the time. So having some sort of like floor indicator, I just thought would be the best option, because like we're always in connection with the ground itself and what's in front of us, either with the dog or the cane. And so even just having like a giant spray paint yellow spot would also be a great indicator if you're low vision and you can't actually tell where the sign is. At least having that like higher contrast paint would allow you to kind of know a little bit easier. And plus it would probably give the drivers like a bigger warning. Oh yeah, that's a bus stop. Don't drive past there. Someone is pulling the thing. So that, and actually having covers at more of the bus stops would probably increase the rider usage at more of the higher frequency bus stops, because it can really suck being stuck in the rain and waiting for it. So, yeah.
Thank you. We're now at 5:18 and we do have more on the agenda. So have I got anybody moving in a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Jocelyn, are you wanting to move option number 1?
Yes. Option number 1 is the proposed list, right?
Yes.
On attachment B. I so move that.
Okay. Seconded.
Sorry, through the chair, just to interrupt. It's actually the staff recommendation.
The staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, removing the staff recommendation. Seconded by Rachel. I think I saw her hand up. If we don't have any further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. And we will move on to the agenda number 6, other business. And we've got proposed recommendations from Sarah Cameron. And I think everybody probably has read them, but I'll open this up for further discussion. And Deborah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, Sarah had asked me to speak to this on her behalf. And so just in the effort to fully disclose, Sarah is an employee at Nanaimo Family Life Association. So we do work together. She works in our Gender Journeys program. And so that is not, however, where these are coming from. This is coming from, I think, one of her community groups that she works with. in terms of the fourth recommendation, which talks about sensitivity training, I feel like I would need to not be a part of, I'd have to withhold my vote because in Nanaimo Family Life does provide that training. And so just to, again, be transparent, that I wouldn't want to influence that unduly. So you have the recommendations and I have some backup information I can provide if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
So maybe through the chair, could I just provide some guidance on process then?
Yes.
It might be a good idea to consider them all individually. And then when we get to number 4, Deborah could declare a conflict of interest and be put in the Zoom waiting room. And then we'll bring you back in after the vote for that one.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Not the first time I've been put on timeouts, guys. So thank you.
So, and just for process and just for timing, just to move this quickly, what I would like to do is move through then, as Guy suggested, each item individually, but let's get the motions on the floor and let's get discussing them then. So, Adrian.
I'd like to move recommendation 1, please.
Okay, moved by Adrian, seconded by Cheryl. Okay, for discussion. Jocelyn? No? Any discussion on this one? If there's no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That's number 1. Number 2. Anybody wishing to move this motion? Oh, was that you moving it, Adrian?
I'll move it. I just wanted to give someone else the opportunity, but
and a seconder? Do we have a seconder? I got a seconder with Rachel. I'll open it up for discussion now. Seems like including communications, and these are all recommendations that will go to council. Councillor Armstrong. Were you wanting to say something?
Yeah, I did. Something that's come up, and I've been following this in other areas, is that we can't mandate it, but strongly encourage, because it goes against some people's religious beliefs. So I've been following that in other different jurisdictions. For they say it's up to the individual to do it. So I wonder if we should say strongly encourages the use of. Or we can wait till that hits council table too, and that can be discussed there. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Chair. And Ms. Snellgrove may want to add into this too. It's just all these, as mentioned, all these will go to council. Council, just so the committee may or may not, don't be shocked. Council may ask staff to do more research once they are received on each of these items of any kind of implications, both with our collective agreements or other HR related items. And so, and as I mentioned, and also for their 2 council members that they may want to introduce it that way. I think this is exactly, again, what we want the Inclusiveness Committee to work on and move towards council, but just didn't want to be surprised that if it gets to council and there's some other work to be done, that's not anything against the committee, it would just be council doing its due diligence in reviewing anything. So all things are reviewed and checked off.
And thank you, Mr. Harding, for adding that, because yes, sometimes things that seem very simple are actually quite complex. And we have to review everything when we move forward, and knowing how other municipalities are actioning this. But I think the most important thing is we take this in little bites and we move things forward. And if we don't get everything, we move some things, and next time we take more bites. So we've got number 2. And as Mr. Harding said, these are recommendations that go to council, and we'll work our best to at least know how and why, and not why, but how we can move forward on these items. So if there's no further speakers to number 2, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. I will now go to number 3. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Jocelyn. Do I have any speakers to number 3? Adrian.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment. I think the word "of" needs to be between use and gender inclusive in the second line.
Yes.
To include the use of gender. I think that's a very friendly amendment. And any speakers to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, the motion carries. Now we'll come to number 4, and my understanding is, Deborah, you are going to, I forget the politically correct term.
I think it's recuse myself.
Abstain. Excuse yourself.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, when declaring a conflict, we just need to know the reason why. I know you've stated it earlier, but if you could repeat that, then we'll just put you in the waiting room.
I would just say that the agency that I'm the executive director of offers this training, and so it is a conflict of interest for me to vote in this particular instance.
And Sky will put you in the waiting room.
Yeah, and we'll just do that right now. Thank you. All right, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a mover for number 4? So moved by Rachel, seconded by Richard. I don't see any hands up for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes, and we can now let Deborah back in, out of the waiting room.
Okay, so she should be back in the meeting now, and there she is. Great.
There. Okay, the motion passed. Okay, so other business number 6B, Mr. Richard Harlow regarding the pedestrian island to accommodate bike lanes. And I know that we received information about what's happening in Victoria. And also to let the committee know, we do have Mr. Sims that can assist us if we need further information as well. I believe Mr. Sims is still here. I think he is. Okay, great. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, so I had this concern, this email brought to my attention from another blind person in the community here in Nanaimo. It was something that was brought up in the newspaper, so I linked the articles in relation to this too. And yeah, it's I fully support the bike lanes, push for a more green future, but of course, having these bike lanes also making sure that blind people are safe when trying to cross would definitely be a concern of mine, and one that I'm trying to look forward for any possible human tribunal cases that could come our way. So.
Thank you. And Mr. Sims, are you able to add anything to what we're doing in Nanaimo, or?
I can. Thank you, Chair. I just to bring the rest of the committee up to speed, the Human Rights Tribunal in Victoria found that when you have a bike lane, separated bike lane, oftentimes we'll put a bus stop out on an island so that blind pedestrians need to cross from the sidewalk across the bike lane to the island, and that puts them at jeopardy of being struck by a cyclist. So the Human Rights Tribunal found that Victoria did need to address it. So that's sort of part one of the findings of the tribunal. Part two is yet to occur, and that part two is, what is the solution? So how do we address this? So this is something that our staff and the staff of a number of other municipalities across British Columbia are watching closely, as well as the provincial government, simply because they're called floating bus stops. These floating bus stops are part of the international standard for separated bike lanes where there's transit routes. So this puts a new twist on trying to solve that problem. So that's still kind of very much a live issue. So of course we're watching it carefully. We recognize the risk and the scariness of a blind pedestrian standing there not knowing whether a cyclist is coming. So we're moving to similar to what they're doing in the United States. We've looked at Seattle and the American Disability Association standards down there, and we're putting at least signage in the we'll call it the bike lane crosswalk, where to the pedestrian or to the transit island, signage that says yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. So that may not be the full answer that the Human Rights Tribunal comes up with, but at least it's sort of a step beyond where our current standard is. So I hope that helps. I'm happy to answer. As I say, we're watching it closely, and we really see this as a province-wide issue.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sims. I see Eileen, and then I see Cheryl. You're on mute, Eileen. You're muted. You're muted.
I've got it.
Got it.
I'm thinking you got regular pedestrian walkways that have a push button that then puts a light on, and so cars come in can see the light flashing, and they know that they have to pay attention for a pedestrian. So why can you not have in a floating bus stop a motion sensor activator that does the same thing? So if somebody passes that sensor, the light goes on, it starts to flash, it lets people know in the bus or in the laneway that there's someone there. Why can that not be the same thing? That could go for a person who has to move slowly, that has a walker, that has a cane, that is blind. Motion sensor light. The bike has to attend to being on the road like a regular vehicle. So education, I'm just saying.
Oh, it's a good idea. And Cheryl.
I just wanted to add to that Victoria thing. There's another one that I'm watching, and I'll forward it to Mr. Sims and Mr. Rose. I can't remember if it's out of Montreal or Toronto, where the same thing happened, only it was an elderly lady that was trying to get across and got smoked by the cyclist, and there's a lawsuit pending right now against the city for knowingly putting that person in jeopardy. So I'll forward that one to you because that'll be a good one to watch as well.
Thank you, Cheryl. And just to follow up to close, I don't see any other speakers. Was there any other questions that you had, Richard, for Mr. Simser?
I guess for this project, the sign will be having to do for now. It's like you said, one step ahead of what is currently the low standard or the low bar. So maybe having in this project for the actual construction of the bike lanes, having some money put aside just in case for any future resolution that comes out of the Human Tribunal case here, and also the Montreal case mentioned of, might be wise for in the future.
Thank you. And Cheryl, you still had your hand up. Nope. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item number 6C, the checkered eye, low vision proposal, and Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Chair. Just one more item we weren't able to get to last month, or I think we've added on to this one, is the checkered eye project.
Yes.
Laura Clarkson is going to do a quick introduction to it and then open up for any discussion we may have.
Thank you.
Turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Richard. Through the chair to the committee members, I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of a local resident who brought forward some information about the checkered eye project. The goal of the person bringing this forward is to raise awareness at the grassroots level in our community, and she feels that if awareness is raised with this city committee, that would be a really good starting place. She requested that I share a bit of information about the project and asked that you take a serious look at it. Included in the agenda package was a variety of links and information about the initiative, which originally started in Ontario. If you haven't had the chance to check out the links, I encourage you to do so. Essentially, the project is for folks who are low vision or any level of visual impairment, having a button to wear if they choose to let people know they are on the low vision spectrum, which would help when they're out in public. For example, if a cashier at a grocery store saw someone wearing the button, They would know it's helpful to read the total out loud and help direct the person to the debit machine with verbal cues. The leaders of the Checkered Eye Project are firm believers that this icon could become as recognizable as the wheelchair icon, and that is the stretch goal of the project. And I was told this is currently the only low vision icon out there.
Thank you. Do we have or did everybody get the opportunity to go and see the Checkered Eye badge? Or hoping? Okay. I've got Deborah.
Really quick question. I'm sorry I didn't do my homework on this one, but I do have a question. I love the idea. I think it's great. But is there training that goes along with that? So, for example, with the example you raised around, checkout people, to kind of, when they see that, understand what the responsibility might be to go along with that, could be helpful. Just wondering.
Thank you. And I have some comments to add to that, but I'll go to Richard first.
So I helped with like the changing of the disability icon that's currently being used in the city, and like that took time for it to actually catch recognition and such too. There are actually a couple vision impairment logos and symbols that are currently in usage. I know of the white cane symbol and the guide dog symbol, and the checkered eye one I have a lot of mixed feelings on, because like the white cane itself is the biggest identifier, or the guide dog, and if most, like, I understand some people have vision issues, say under certain lighting conditions, but if you don't know what the white cane is, seeing the checkered eye, I kind of feel would kind of be almost like, what's the point of it? Especially because you kind of need the training. I often get people still pointing after I tell them that I am blind, so often it's just connecting what that actually means. So I've kind of had issues with the checkered eye project personally as a vision impaired person, but I know some people within the vision impaired community like it because of the fact that, yes, if you have your hands full and you're maybe following a guide or something like that, maybe the badge would be easier. But yeah, it's kind of problematic at least.
Thank you. And Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Chair. So again, just wanted to give community a little background. So Laura's a lot of requests and issues that now that the community knows that this committee exists are coming through, and Laura is our kind of connection for that. So Laura's really bringing this forward as she mentioned, as a request from a member of the community, and so we thought we'd make sure we bring it forward. And so this is more of staff actually asking the committee questions, and Richard's comments are perfect, and it's more of even a question to Richard is, do you think we should send this to CNIB or others for more of a review and come back, or we just don't know all the details other than with the research that Laura has done and the request from one resident?
Yeah, I would say that like there's going to be mixed review from like different community organizations because of the fact that it's kind of like identity based disability. So like a lot of people identify with their disability. A lot of people use person first language with their disability. So there's kind of that divide to begin with, where I think this might be a really good thing to kind of launch off of is possibly like a proclamation during, say, White Cane Awareness Week or Guide Dog Day, or like on some certain day that kind of recognizes vision impairment, so that there could be the collection, the connection at all, and not just like pointing it out and supporting it. Yeah, I think that would be a better avenue, possibly.
Thank you. Jocelyn, did you have your hand up? I couldn't remember.
I did, and I was
Thank
like,
you.
oh, like torn.
Yes,
I'll just
please.
come out with it. I struggle with the same way Richard has said. But the additional thing that I would want to tell the staff who are here is that I feel a little uncomfortable with things that put their onus on the person with the disability to disclose their disability and remember to wear the badge and stuff, like to put on the emblems of their disability. And I know we can't always do that, like that. We can't always do like a universal design approach to everything. And I totally get that. But I think Richard's suggestion makes a lot of sense. And like what the city can do is to take that symbol and use it as a way to educate city staff and the wider community about inclusion of low vision and blind folks.
Very good. Well said. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I guess my concern is that the CNIB didn't like it.
Yeah.
So that's a concern for me because they represent the majority of blind people, to my knowledge, or a vast majority of them. And if that organization has concerns about it, I think we need to follow up with that further, or else just recognize that maybe this is not the time or place for it. Because I'm concerned when communities and stuff start doing things out on their own, and then you get like 30 different symbols in 30 different communities, and then it kind of loses what I think you're trying to do. So, yeah, I just think it's interesting that CNIB was not interested. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thanks.
Thank you. Adrian.
I'm really getting a lot from this conversation. I want to thank everybody and for bringing it forward. And what strikes me is that this has come out of somebody's lived experience, right? As do many things. And I think Jocelyn is absolutely right. I'm thinking about along the lines of it's the work that we do as a committee is so exciting because hopefully it involves a shift, and a shift in many, many ways, in many areas. And that shift isn't for those of us who experience barriers to always push forward and carry. It's like the larger shift, and it's the broadening of inclusion. And so, yeah, like having that symbol be part of an awareness day or awareness campaign, yes, but you know, to not have the onus be on the individual, I think is a really important statement. And it's interesting too, because I'm thinking about like, this has been brought forward because whatever helpful symbols or indicators are supposed to be helpful weren't helpful, right? But it's broader than the pin. It's broader than you know, symbolizing something. It's this whole conversation is so indicative of the change that we're working to make together.
Thank you, Adrian. Richard, do you have your hand up? Or anything more to add?
I think it was just up from before.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So recognizing the time, and I think we might have some new business then. I thank everybody for their input. Like Mr. Harding said, this is exactly where we want to be able to have these conversations when members of the public are like, you know, we're wanting some feedback. It's nice to bring it here and be able to understand your points of view as well. So I will move on to, we've got the correspondence, which we kind of referred to. That's what I was referring to earlier when we were talking about the government building on Selby Street. So that's just for information. And then there isn't new business on the agenda, but I know we were thinking of new business. Councillor Armstrong. You're muted.
I had myself unmuted. I think I just wanted to go back to the piece of correspondence because I think the concern now that I'm reading it again is the fact that where the it's curbing, so they can't get the wheelchair up. So, but I'm going to leave that with staff. That they'll look after that. Now, my new piece of thing is I wanted to make a motion that what was the name of that? Hang on, the training, design for accessibility training.
Right.
Okay, hang on, I'm just going to go grab it. I wanted to make a motion. Okay, yeah, I wanted to make a motion that members of the Accessibility and Diversity Committee, any City of Nanaimo staff, participate in a universal design workshop, a date and to be determined, or maybe it should be a staff report to see the feasibility of us participating. I'll look to Ms. Snellgrove for advice on that.
Ms. Snellgrove.
Thank you. So I'd actually want Mr. Harding to comment if he thinks we need a staff report on this or if it can go straight to council as a recommendation that staff and the committee participate. I'm not quite sure on that one.
Sorry, I was thinking of Mr. This is on the from the shell on the handicap parking.
No, the universal
workshop.
For staff and the committee members to participate in a universal workshop training session that Jacqueline Novak was talking about under 4A. There's the option to have a staff report on providing those opportunities or just going straight to council for a recommendation that the committee and staff who are interested participate.
I think it would be better for us to come back on that one with this committee because then we can work out some of those details. We're also working with them quite a bit on some other components. There was initially there was a time constraint, and maybe Lynn will remember. I think that we ended up being that there wasn't as much of a time constraint as we thought. We initially thought that the courses were in May, and that's why we were initially trying to get it in. But I believe their courses can happen at any time. Lynn, do you recall? No.
Jocelyn does.
Jocelyn does.
Oh, the courses can be scheduled as needed, as far as I understand.
Yeah,
that's not my job directly, but my understanding is that they're flexible.
Yeah, if we could let us bring that back to the committee.
Oh, Jacqueline Novak's here still. So do you have anything to say about when the courses are available? No? Okay.
So
we'll leave it at that.
So Chair, my motion will be that staff bring back a staff report to, I guess, to this committee to look at the possibilities or the feasibilities, including a budget if required, for the accessibility community and designated city staff members to participate in a universal design workshop.
Thank you. Seconder? I guess Richard seconding. I don't think it really needs any further to be added to it, so I'll call the question. Rachel. And then Deborah.
Would any other committees for the city like to join us in that workshop?
I personally would like to keep it a smaller group to start with, and then if it's I would like us to be like a testing ground, and then we could open it up to others, because I think sometimes we lose stuff if we get too big a group. But that's just me. I'm certainly open to other comments.
Mr. Harding?
No, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay.
Did you want me to answer something there?
Well, no. I think it's a very good suggestion, and maybe what we can do is start off with this committee, and if we move forward with it and review it, and we believe that it's something that buildings should know about, though they probably do already, but yeah, let's start with us.
We can also come back as we review it with some key staff, particularly in the Parks, Recreation, and Culture side of things that may be used to participate. There's also may be a good chance for you to meet some of our operations people through a course like this. They don't get to always come on these committees. We've got a lot of very good staff out there trying to do. Actually, I just talk about the stuff they end up actually doing it, right? So so we can maybe include that in our report coming back to you.
Thank you. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And do we have a motion? Wow, you guys, we made it. We did it all. I don't think there's anything else. So I will look for a motion for adjournment. So moved by Debbie, seconded by Jocelyn. All those in favor? Have an awesome evening. Thank you, everybody, as always, for your valuable input. This is a great committee. See you all next
Thank you
time.
for all the time.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Danny, are you going to Sandstone tonight?
Yep.
Yeah, me too.